Hi everybody and welcome to another WeatherCastUSA Quickcast. On this Quickcast, we're going to break down the change from meteorological winter to meteorological spring and see if that means an end to the wintry weather, especially across the northern tier and the northeast. So let's get into it. So here's a look at the current weather map across the US. This is mid-level water vapor, and we can see a couple patterns here on Friday afternoon. As far as the upper level pattern, we can kind of see a general frothiness across the especially northern tier, bit of a northwest flow here, and some clipper systems are riding along this boundary between the cooler air and also the warmer air to the south. We also had a little bit of a southern system work through yesterday, causing some large hail across the deep south and the Tennessee Valley. That is now pushed to the east, with still some thunderstorms across mainly the Florida Peninsula, especially the I-4 corridor. Earlier in the day here on Friday, we had some strong storms around Jacksonville. Those have pushed offshore into the Atlantic. And I was watching earlier today, there are some heavier showers and thunderstorms offshore in the Gulf. Those are likely about to push ashore into the Tampa Bay area. So if you do have any plans in Tampa and over towards Orlando later this afternoon, you may get some stronger storms in that region. But otherwise, much of the country is fairly quiet. Again, a couple clipper systems. That's going to bring some light snow in a corridor somewhat like this, and we'll take a look at that in just a couple minutes too with the snowfall forecast. These clippers, while not going to introduce a lot of snow across the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes and into the Northeast a little bit, again, not individually big snow producers. What they are going to do is set up a little bit of a new pattern for the late part of the weekend and the early part of the next week, where we have to watch this area here, where there's going to be a little bit of a return flow of warm, moist air from the Gulf and even a little bit from the Atlantic, and then a new impulse kind of swinging through, or a couple impulses swinging through. This is where that warm air from the south is going to clash with cool air and a cool high pressure over Canada, drawing in some cool air into the northeast. And that, you can already kind of tell, creates a little bit of a messy pattern when we have warm, moist air overlaying cool air at the surface, with a little bit of an enhanced corridor of wintry precipitation late weekend, and then a couple rounds, it looks like, into next week. So this is a first look here at the GFS. This is just one model run of the ensemble, but the model's actually been in fair agreement for the next couple days with the systems. You can see here that system, that clipper working across mostly the northern Great Lakes and then into Canada. A little bit of showers and also some snow showers into the interior northeast over the weekend. We kind of see that next clipper developing and tracking across the northern plains as well as the upper Midwest, a little bit into the Corn Belt with a little swath of light snow. Again, not big accumulations, but just some nuisance snow. Same for kind of the areas here in the interior northeast, but we're not looking at a repeat of last weekend where we got 2 feet of snow in the Boston area and down into Rhode Island. But we can see that cooler air also working across the northern tier. Here, in addition to these clipper systems, is that cooler high pressure that'll continue working east and kind of build into this area, reinforce that cool air going into later in the weekend and early parts of next week. And we can see that second clipper system that draws that cool air down a little bit does bring some snow showers and some snow squalls, some accumulating snow possible into parts of Pennsylvania, New York State, the upper Ohio Valley. That's into Sunday, and then further into the northeast through the day on Sunday. From there, we see an impulse kind of developing along this boundary. Essentially, this is going to be somewhat of a stalled boundary, a stationary front that divides warmer air to the south with the cooler air and that Canadian high pressure to the north. An impulse, a little wrinkle along this boundary is going to develop by late Sunday, early Monday. That's going to be the next kicker for some winter activity along basically the I-70 corridor. So portions of Kansas and Missouri, especially Kansas City into St. Louis, are going to be right on that line between some snow potentially to the north and some rain, especially to the south, but also a little bit of icing and wintry mix in between. And there still are discrepancies on where exactly that lines up. This particular run of the GFS puts the wintry mix into south central Missouri, keeping Kansas City and St. Louis mostly snow. However, there are model runs that pulled us a little bit further to the north, bring a little bit more snow up into Iowa and parts of central Illinois, and then also bring that wintry mix or ice more into that I-70 corridor. So we still have a few days, and there's going to be fluctuations in these models So just know, essentially, if you're kind of along and north of I-44, and especially towards I-70, you're going to get potentially snow, potentially a wintry mix, potentially a little bit of both. That's kind of TBD. That continues across the Ohio Valley as we go into early Monday and across the central Appalachians into later on Monday. Potentially, again, this model fluctuates a little bit. Different runs show different things. It could be up a little bit more again towards that I-70 corridor, putting more snow into the areas like the Delmarva, maybe Philly and South Jersey. I don't think this one is going to get up towards the New England area. It's mostly going to be a mid-Atlantic and Ohio Valley and lower Missouri Valley kind of a storm system. But this does kind of set the boundary again. We can see that high pressure, that cooler high pressure developing. And there's still going to be that frontal boundary, that stationary front divide between the warmer air and the cooler air overnight, Monday into Tuesday. It shows a little bit of that cool air damming, getting down into parts of the mid-Atlantic and into the Carolinas with some cool air, especially in the evening at night, and cooled up against the Appalachians. Also then changing over to some wintry precip. We do have to watch that. If that trend continues, that's something to watch. But otherwise, this system mostly isn't going to be a large snow or even large freezing rain event. Nothing like we had in January down in the deep south with crippling ice storms. But still, any kind of ice and wintry mix can certainly cause travel delays. From there, we see this next impulse sort of develop along that same basically stationary front. The stationary front then starts to lift towards the north. You can see that cool air gets pushed up a little bit further. This one is likely going to lead to a little bit more snow into areas that got hit really hard by the blizzard last week. It's also going to push a little bit more of that wintry precip and that wintry mix up into the northern parts of the mid-Atlantic and even into the southern parts of the Great Lakes, potentially north of Chicago even, across portions of southeast Wisconsin and southern Michigan. This one could have a little bit more accumulating snow across portions of New England, especially those areas that stay in that cooler air funneled in from that high pressure to the north. While there is going to be, I think, a strip of icy and wintry mix somewhere likely across the southern tier of New York, potentially into southern New England. And as I mentioned just a minute ago, that does create travel issues. But you can see how this warm nose kind of pushes that wintry mix and that wintry weather up into solidly into New England and kind of keeps it out of New York City and out of Philadelphia, versus that first system that came through with a little bit more of a chance for wintry weather down across the mid-Atlantic, Philly, Baltimore, DC, Delmarva, that sort of area. On the GFS, that is your look at the wintry weather holding on as we transition into meteorological spring. And just a quick look here, this is the Euro model, and we can see very similar. The Euro model and the GFS have been pretty much in line with this for the last couple days, but very similar. We see the first little clipper system, kind of a little bit of light snow across the upper Midwest and parts of the Great Lakes. That kind of swings through into Saturday. And then from there, just kind of cool, maybe some snow showers. But we can see that second system developing along this boundary between the warmer air and the cooler air. And again, we see that wintry mix as well as some snow breaking out on the northern side. This particular run of the Euro pushes it, like I said earlier, a little bit further to the north, putting that wintry mix across the I-70 corridor. So again, there's different runs within the models that show, north-south fluctuations on where that rain snow line is. There's also slight differences between the two main models, the Euro and the GFS, on that rain snow line. So just know, again, anywhere kind of in this area from Kansas City, Topeka, over towards St. Louis, Columbia, Missouri, and then into the Ohio Valley, there's a chance of rain to snow with some ice in between. And then very similar path, though. This one actually kind of weakens it a little bit further than the GFS, but some rain snow mix making it across the central Appalachians and into parts of the mid-Atlantic before that next system kind of builds along the stationary front and then really starts to push that stationary front northward. This one's still in pretty good alignment with the GFS. This one shows a little bit more cool air right into the tri-state, so we do have to watch that. Could get a little bit close in that, especially those northern New York City suburbs into Connecticut. But mostly the accumulating snow should be up into parts of New England. And this one, I think even this run of the Euro pushes that rain snow line even a little further north into New England. And then we have the warm air down across the much of the East Coast outside of New England. But again, I think both models show it pretty closely. that there's a possibility of some accumulating snow across the Northeast, upstate New York, and especially northern New England. I think those are the best, highest confidences right now of accumulating snow. And then for the southern tier of New York and southern New England, it's kind of a toss-up at this point. It's something to watch. It's something to continue to check back and monitor, but nothing to really cancel any plans anytime yet. Just kind of keep an eye on that. We looked at the winter weather impacts across the Northeast and also the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley. A couple rounds of potentially some accumulating snow, but also some impactful mixed precipitation and ice potential. So thanks for joining us on this WeatherCast USA Quickcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click that bell icon to get notifications when we go live or post new forecast videos, or also morning weather discussions. And then also follow us on Facebook and Twitter, WXCastUSA, and we'll see you on the next Quickcast.